And just let's see how this goes. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, that part is started. Oh God.
Hold on, let me see this comment real quick. I think it should be finished by September, October. I think that's a different one. I don't know. I don't want to speak to it because there's like 3 different emeralds. Even if in Google Maps, if you put emerald, there's 3 of them, I think. I'm talking about the one that was just completed. That's in Westlands. Is that Ring Road? Is it on Ring Road? I'm not sure. Okay. All right, let's get to the video. Also, super chats, always appreciate it. Let's do it like, is this going to work? Yeah, let's do it like that. Hey. Okay. Oh boy.
Oh God.
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode with Frank Zanu, the host of ZPR, Zanu Project Rethink. Yes, we do get people to rethink their conclusions and answers. Today, I'm in the studio with some wonderful group of people. They make me miss home so bad. I have in the studio today.
All right, actually, let me just give some context to my perspective on this, because I used to see his clips on YouTube, and I don't go on TikTok a lot, but I used to see his stuff on TikTok, and I was like, yo, who is this guy just crapping on the continent like that? He's like sounding like Uncle Ruckus, and like just sounded like he hated, he sounded like self-hate. And I'm like, yo, what is up with this guy? And I really didn't think anything of it because my bias was like, dude, no. But as I've started to listen, I was like, oh, okay. So that's where I'm coming from.
Students from the University of Bridgeport. They're not just students from international African students at the University of Bridgeport. Now, Bridgeport University happened to be my alma mater, and I won't tell them the class I graduated. It makes me really. And the reason I'm excited is because they are Gen Z. And each time I have a Gen Z in the studio, the conversation is always very interesting because their perspective is different, mine is different, and we're trying to bridge the gap. We will get straight to it right now. We have here Theo Akufo-Pare, Business Administration, of course. So by that name, you're from Ghana.
I am, yeah.
Woo, that's also my home. And then we have with us Benita Inwanlozi, who is in nursing.
Yeah, Walozie, my last name.
Oh, Walozie.
Yep.
So Unwan will mean the child of.
Walozie is like child of God.
So what is Lozier?
Lozie is like, well, Lozie is more like God's own. So
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's different a little bit from Chinyedu and wow,
Yes.
man, you got. All right, and you are from Nigeria.
Nigeria,
So we
yes.
have a Ghanaian. Oh, and who has the best jollof?
Oh, we can't talk about that now. That's another
All right.
She knows the truth.
That's correct. And now what is
Yeah.
All right, cool thing here, talking to Gen Z, young people, good, interesting background to have this conversation. And then Frank said my home is in Ghana. I thought he was from Benin, though. Very West African centric, so I know that we talk about the East a lot. So we'll see if there's a big comparison, because I feel like there's a big difference. Jesse, what's going on? We've missed you.
I like this right here.
All right.
interesting is that the students are also members of the African Students Association at the University of Bridgeport, an organization that I was a co-founder back in the 90s, and they've kept it alive. They get some really very interesting events happen on campus. One is coming up soon.
You know what I like about this is you see the energy is very positive. They don't have a disposition that they came there to, what's popular now is like debate or argue. Really, it's an argument on a lot of this content, which I don't have very much interested in. It's the reason why I like this is because it's more of a discovery and a conversation.
Is it 13th of March or 17th?
I believe it's the
It's
14th.
14th of March.
14th of March.
Yes.
And what is it going to be?
Well, there's a Royal Fox wedding. So this one is like just bringing like, you know, Nigerian and Ghanaian culture.
In terms of wedding.
Yes, in terms
Okay.
of a wedding.
Okay.
So
Just to
yes.
showcase what
Yeah.
weddings look like back
So
there.
a lot of
That's cool.
dollars is going to be rained on the bride and stuff like that, as we see in the videos. Yeah, it's usually very colorful. So if you are in town, if you are within the Fairfield County, March 14, March 14,
You're
the
warming
campus
up.
of the University of Bridgeport, please
about
come
to
and
get into
support.
it.
If you are an alumni living in, please, I'll be there, and we want to make it look really good. So thank you guys for keeping ASA still burning on campus. And today you are in the studio not to talk about ASA, right? So I sent you guys a note when I came to visit, and I said to you that, of course, one of the things that is burning right now is every African country is looking to become developed, right? Because we are the only continent that is labeled as underdeveloped countries. And we've accepted it, and we know why, and we've been trying, whether you're a Ghanaian or Nigerian, or so we're all trying, right? And then I said, well, the effort is useless because no black country would ever develop.
Woo, what a claim. Is MH in here? I was hoping MH would drop in because I was curious what she thinks about this.
Let me explain what I mean by black countries, meaning the 54 that is on the continent.
MH, if you're in here, if you got time, I'd be very curious to see what you had to say.
The 13 black countries in the Caribbean, the black communities in the United States, in UK, or wherever you are never, ever going to
Develop. Can you also explain what you mean by develop, like in terms of economic?
It's always good if you're having a conversation to define the terms. So what does that mean? It's kind of important because we may have different understandings with what even develop means. Oh, you said you agree. Tell me why. Tell me why.
Or technology or
A very good question. I was going to throw that to you because all I keep hearing when you turn on to Facebook or Instagram and it's Ghanaians or Nigerians or Sierra Leone's, our country must develop. Tinubu is a bad man today because he is not moving Nigeria to where it must go. From the 60s, all you've been talking about is we accepted the label in the 70s as underdeveloped countries. We did. There's no debate about that. We use it in our IMF applications. We are third world underdeveloped countries. So that's what I mean. So you have to tell me what you mean when you said I'm crazy by saying you won't develop. It means you understood what I meant.
yes. I feel like the African countries, well, for me, I just went home to Ghana. I haven't been home in a while, so seeing the country now versus like the 3 years ago when I was there, I see a lot of differences. I see evolution. I just saw like this morning, I know this is kind of off topic, but I saw like Burkina Faso, they just created their first electric car, like their first.
So there's all this content about Burkina Faso, but I don't think a lot of it's real. And I saw Woody Maya go there. But apparently those vehicles are just Chinese imports rebranded. And I'm not trying to be negative, but we want to believe something, and I feel like they're giving you something that you want to believe. It's because so many of our best and brightest are in the West. We're not even in our countries to develop them. Oh, that's addressed in this video a little bit, I think. Good afternoon, bro. Hope all is well. What's going on, man? Darnell. How are you?
Blood hell.
Appreciate you. $2 super chat. Thank you very
I
much.
like this right here.
I hope all is well. I haven't talked to you in a while, but if you need anything, let me know. But I appreciate it, man. What's your perspective on this? Have you seen this content before? What do you think? And I really want to know what Kenyans think specifically on these topics. I've never had this type of conversation. Probably not good to try to do it online first, but for those of you guys that are Kenyan, I really want to know what your opinion is about this stuff.
Local, completely original electric vehicle
I
in
don't
that
think that's
country.
correct.
That would seem so like far-fetched, like 5, 10 years ago from an African country. So I do think that development is possible in African countries, even though it might be not even way slow. Well, it has been considerably slower than.
Before I jump ahead of you, can you name the company in Burkina Faso, a car company that was established, opened by a Burkinabe, a citizen? What is the name, and which cars did this car company make first before this electric car?
I can't.
You can't.
I
Where
can
did you
name-
see it?
I saw it on Instagram today.
Yeah, so if you watch Wodi Maya's video about Burkina Faso, they go to a place and the cars have names from the Sahel region and all that. But when I looked into it further, and I'm not exactly sure, but those are like Chinese electric cars that are rebranded, but I don't know because they say they're manufactured there. But if you took the blueprints and manufactured them there, I mean, I guess that's good.
Actually,
I'm really disappointed. You are in college, and social media is not a place for fact-fetched news or stories. Burkina Faso has not manufactured, designed, and rolled out an electric car.
they haven't rolled it out yet. But
Now,
they
where
just
is
desi-
it?
They just designed and
Designed. I thought you said people are test driving the car on the streets of Burkina Faso.
did not say that.
Oh, so where
It
is
hasn't
it?
been out yet.
No, where
It
is
is
it?
Itoya.
Who designed it?
Well, I
You don't know. Which company?
Itoya.
What?
ITA.
All right, it's a little unfair those questions because I mean it is, but it's not. Member. Oh, problem already. He doesn't want to define develop. He just said, you know what I mean. Well, by engaging with what someone says before you ask what that means, then it kind of implies that we agree. No, on the term.
OAI.
And it's owned by who?
I might have spelled that wrong.
It's
I don't
owned by
know
who?
who is owned.
You don't know. It could be a foreign company that came to Burkina Faso and designed a car and said, we could manufacture from this place. That is not something you say is for a developed country. That's not development.
But you also, I mean, it's a sign.
We don't know. We cannot use that as an example of what you're talking. I haven't seen it. I need to see it and say that they've do you know how long it took Tesla to roll out one car, even the design to be complete and be a prototype? So no, it's not true.
But you can't just say it's not true just because.
Because you don't know the name of the company. You don't know the
I just
factory.
told you the name of the company. I just
Because
don't
it
know
was written on the Instagram.
that. Yeah. Maybe that.
Well, in my perspective, like I do feel like, well, where I'm from, like we struggle with a lot of it's a lot of economic struggles like we face due to like leadership and things like that. But I just feel like we do have the capability of being developed because I see like, because being transitioned from like Nigeria to like here, I've seen like the difference in like motivation and people wanting to see change in Nigeria rather than compared to here. People just like, they get what they want. Everything's easy to them. But like in Nigeria, like even though like we struggle with many like factors with economic, we do see like there is going to be a change. It is going to be like sooner or later will be development in that country. I just feel like we, like us Nigerians, we have motivation to like have that and like do that change.
Yeah.
So I do like my perspective. I do see that there is going to be a change in Nigeria.
Sure. Every 4 years, there is a change in Nigeria. There's a change in every country. So let's back up a little bit. Maybe we are ahead of ourselves. What is it in Nigeria? What is not there that makes you say that it's not developed?
What is
That's
not
a good
there?
question.
Yes.
I mean, some people may say like the
No,
infrastructure.
you have to say, you speak, yes. Ghana, what is not there that makes you say Ghana is not developed? What is it? You?
Well, for my country, I'll say like what is not there. It's just like there's lack of leadership.
And that's tough on these young people. But that is a good question.
Like in my country.
So that lack of leadership, what has it not provided Nigeria that makes you, and I know, I've lived there, that it's not a developed country. Yes, it's not. What is it that is?
You know what's funny? I hear a lot of people on the continent say that leadership is the biggest problem. and I probably shouldn't be the one to say this, but I kind of feel like that's the same thing like when black people say that racism is the thing that holds them back in the US. I'll elaborate later.
It's not there.
Well, from what I see and like what like family tell me, like in terms of leadership, it's just like there's no structure. There's no structure.
Explain structure.
Like basically, like there's a lot of like inflation going on right now in Nigeria.
Inflation has gone on here in
Yeah,
America, yes.
but it's like-
do you have everything and inflation happen to you? You can be a healthy man and catch fever. That's how inflation works. So, do you have everything that makes a country develop, but you have inflation?
Well, okay, so yes, even though there's inflation like in Nigeria, like we have the resource. I do believe we have
You
resources.
have resources. I'm talking about it's a developed country. No, it's not. So I'm asking, what is it that is not there that makes it underdeveloped?
Well, leadership. But
Leadership
I'm just
is
saying,
not part
like
of development.
lack
You can
of
have
leadership.
a bad president. We just had one, but the country was still sailing smoothly.
But the thing is, even if they did have like the right people or the resources, like she's saying, it's the people in the country not wanting to like do what they have to
They don't want to.
Yes.
And why don't they want to?
because they're selfish and want to.
And why they're selfish? Who takes his own home and watch it deteriorate because you're selfish? You wouldn't do that. That is your country. Everybody, like he said, has a zeal, want to do something. So let me take you now on a different road, but it's the same path. When, you two, when did you...
So what do you guys think means a country? When can a country now be developed when it was once not developed? That is a good question. Like what does it mean for a country to be developed? Because when I'm in Nairobi, what would make I almost want to say it is developed. Now, maybe the whole country, obviously, but I mean, in the United States, that not everything is developed. And what does it mean? It's funny. I can think of the negatives, right? The things that come to my mind as far as why someone would say, like, let's just say Nairobi specifically, because I can speak to that a lot better. The drainage, that there's open sewer, electrical, the power can go out at times. But as far as getting around or roads or transportation, I think it's developed, although there's a lot of traffic and chaos on the roads and such. I don't think that means it's not developed, though. What makes, and I want you guys to participate with me because I really want to think about this. Okay, if we're using Nairobi, for example, it is, I feel like it is developed. The first time I came, I got around fine, had good experiences. When I'm at restaurants and doing things, getting around, everything works. And I feel like in a lot of cases, I have a superior experience to the United States. What is the thing that makes it underdeveloped? That's in the perspective eye of the individual. Well, maybe we should look up what the international standards are for what a developed versus developing country is. Maybe that'll be interesting. But I don't think we're really debating that aspect, although that was brought up, or thinking about that aspect. I think many people would say these places are underdeveloped, but what does that mean? I feel like Nairobi is developed too, but is it really? Well, what would make it? What are some things that would classify a city, we'll say, not a whole country, as developed or not developed? The infrastructure, health, and well-being of citizens in all aspects. that's a bit broad. What do you mean by infrastructure? Because you pretty much have all the same stuff. You have hospitals, you have pharmacies, you have roads, you have the SGR line, you have an airport, you have public transportation, although it's private, the Matatu system, bodas. What are you missing? Agreed. I think it's defined by average income. Is the income on the average person really the thing that makes you develop? Because that's just people having money. And really, the average is very misleading because if you have a big wealth disparity, you can have very few super rich people and then have everybody else not having any money, which is quickly happening to the U.S. The lack of independent institutions that uphold law and order economic systems. So let's think about that for the lack of independent institutions. What do you mean independent? Because they all, so like, I guess in the U.S., right, the police forces are local to the city. Are you saying that's independent? Why does their independence make them more legitimate? That uphold law and order and economic systems. Well, there is an economic system in Kenya. I think it generally works, right? I don't know. I hear you on the uphold law and order, but one could say when all the protests happened, the police handling things the way that they did would be upholding law and order. So I don't know if that's the thing to say. I think it's generally, obviously, if you call the police in Kenya, like it's a way different experience. But is it totally lawless? I don't think so. I'm just kind of being objective. Poverty, mortality rates. Well, the U.S. has poverty. Are we underdeveloped? A standard or defining of what developed would be is the answer. GDP? So can you not be developed if your country doesn't have a high GDP? So if your country made a whole bunch of money on its own, that would be development. Lower GDP per capita. In my mind, I would think you could have a lower GDP and still be a developed country. Resources are therein, but there are no jobs, no factories. Bottom line, if basic needs are not met, which majority of the population, then tarmac roads mean nothing if one is struggling with basic needs. That's good. That's a good aspect. I think there are some jobs. I think unemployment is high. My observation in Kenya is that there, and actually across the continent, is what happens is there's a lot of raw materials produced, and then they are sent elsewhere to be finished, and then end up being exported back at much higher costs. And because of tax structures, they become even more expensive because those governments are taxing them. And that's a long process. Imagine, for example, I know in West Africa, cocoa that's used to make chocolate, they have dominance over the raw production of that. But for the product being turned into chocolate, it ends up going to Switzerland and Europe and all that stuff, and then being sold back to the continent. So a lot of the economics is in finishing a product. For example, if you were getting rubber for tires, but you don't make the tires, you're getting a lot less of the money than you would if you were manufacturing the tires and then exporting them directly, going to your point of the factories. And that's something that I've noticed when I was at the tea farms in Tigoni. My thoughts that I was having internally is that the farmers aren't making a lot of money because a lot of the processing is being done by other people of the tea leaves and such. So they're going to a factory, so they're losing some of the margin on the profits by going to the factory, and then whatever the factory does by selling, and then there's probably another middleman before it gets to its final end destination and is turned into the product that is bought on the shelves. And I do think this is a major, probably that money is not being captured on the continent. And I think that's the key, because you're producing a lot, but you're not getting the bigger share of the money and value being created by not having the finished product. And then that's compounded by the taxes when stuff comes back into the country. Just thinking out loud, though, guys. Diversified economy, service sector, manufacturing, and not over-reliance on agriculture. Maybe this is why I have a lot of a high view of Kenya, how I ended up there and feel comfortable investing, is that Kenya does have a pretty diversified economy. They have a pretty good service sector. Manufacturing is probably lacking. But yeah, that's a good point, Kim. That's a good point. Development occurs along a continuum and not an either or type thing, but I think there's certain criteria that clearly divides developed and developing countries. Inequality in access to all things that are necessary for good living. Could your country be considered developed even if you don't have equality in wealth and having things? Question. These guys are West African. Unfortunately, perceptions, especially within the educated classes between East and West, are massively different. Colonial exposure was so different. Yeah, definitely. Their perspective is more on the West African side, which could or could not apply as much. But some of the concepts, I think, are still good questions to ask. Maybe the conclusions are different, but I do think the questions are valid. It's all of the above, but generally GDP per capita is used as one of the key barometers. Cipher. Developed countries have high average income, lower poverty, diversified economies, easily accessible healthcare, highly educated, and opportunities for upper mobility, reliable infrastructure. That seems like probably the strongest. Did you write that yourself? Was that ChatGPT? That's a good answer. If I was going to play devil's advocate in the U.S., I was only going to, the only thing that came out to mind is easily accessible healthcare. It's not really a thing. But yeah, yes, there's poverty and mortality in the U.S., but much lower compared to many low-income countries. Yeah, by the widespread for sure. All right, good talk on that. Let's see if we move this forward here. Where we go?
Discovered that Ghana, Nigeria, was not developed. And how did you come to that realization? There was something about health, and you are in nursing. When you go to the doctor, there's something interesting they always ask you. Hey, doc, I'm having a toothache. They ask you, when did it start, right? Because it helps the doctor to know how to. So if you say, oh, just 2 weeks ago, it would be a different approach he would use. How about if you told him, I was born with it? There would be a different approach. So you know you're not well.
He's going somewhere, and I've watched this a couple times. So I think that's an interesting point, is that did you catch something, or is that how you are? And I do think that goes down a dangerous road, because that's how you get to like certain people are inferior to others and such things. So it's a dangerous road to go down, and for a long time has not been really even allowed to be discussed. I think we have to be careful, but we should investigate such conversation, and we will in this thing. The tea farmers are a direct explanation of a settler colonial economy. True. Colonies were designed specifically to produce primary goods that industry needs, but not need it in producer countries. True. Like chocolate in West Africa is not really a thing. It's not really the thing that they do. And they never developed the manufacturing capabilities in the colonies because they would just take the raw goods and then process them in their own countries. And you can see the legacy of that.
Because yesterday, day before, you were healthy, you had appetite. You woke up this morning.
Good point,
You don't
guys.
have
I like
appetite,
this.
you're not feeling well. So you tell the doctor, I am not well, because you knew. So when did you discover that Nigeria or Ghana was not developed?
When did we discover?
Yes, how did you know? When? The when is
It
important.
would be when I came here for school, when I discovered myself rather than being told in school. Because I was told in school when I was in Ghana that, we're a third world country, we're underdeveloped compared to the other,
So when did you know that your country was not developed?
coming here, I would say.
How about you?
I would say
See, isn't that interesting though, that without a comparison, how would you know? And then it calls into this is a thing from an American perspective coming that I think many of us find attractive is that people are happy. I'm not everybody. That's not right. We live in a culture where a lot of your happiness is defined by consumerism and the things that you have. And it seems like people genuinely find value in things outside of material things in Kenya or whatever that can be a fulfilling thing when you get away from materialism. One could argue on the other end that is an entitled point of view, because if you don't have anything, you're kind of forced into valuing different things. I don't know, just a concept, but I definitely appreciate, and one thing coming to Kenya has done for me is kind of divorce me from some of that materialism where I don't see things the same way. I definitely have gotten a little bit further away from materialism than from once I started, in my perspective.
same with me because I was raised in Nigeria and I didn't see anything wrong. I guess I was like young, but like I wasn't like
Yo, she got a New York accent, was raised in Nigeria. What's going on?
I didn't see myself struggling.
That's correct.
So then when I came here, it's like I saw like a huge difference.
Okay.
Like
But see, she said, I didn't see myself struggling. And I think us coming from the West, we find that to be, again, it comes from maybe a privileged point of view, but that's, I don't know, that's that part of that piece that we're talking about is like, do we need to be running around doing all these things, trying to get money just to buy things? Like, is that development? That's the other thing, is like GDP, but what's the GDP from? This BS that we're making? There are things that are essential to living a good life, but is all this luxury and excess and experience? Like, I just saw somebody looking to pay somebody to decorate their Christmas tree. Like, really? Isn't it about the experience? Now it's become a consumerist thing. Jesse Whitehorn, member, $10 super chat. Oh, shoot. Thank you.
I like this right here.
Developed to me as good infrastructure, many accessible hospitals, public transportation networks, good services like police and firefighters, good sewage system. See, I feel like Nairobi mostly, but accessible hospitals is subjective because if you don't have money, it's not accessible. Public transportation kind of works. Good services like police and fire. I mean, that's where there are police. You know, as me, I'm kind of like, I don't like mind the Wild West attitude that much, but it probably goes to my favor when you have resources versus somebody that doesn't. You want the police to still help you as well. I beg to differ. I like this.
I like this right here.
I beg to differ slightly about comparison. There are certain non-negotiables that determine happiness development. For example, if I fall sick or go to the hospital. True.
I like this right here.
I agree with that. Again, guys, I'm just playing devil's advocate, but if before people were aware of certain, like if someone passes away in a way that you don't think is preventable, you may feel differently than if it is preventable, right? So for example, say someone gets cancer in the US and there's some kind of very expensive treatment that isn't covered under their insurance. You are going to be much more devastated, frustrated, angry that that person may pass away from that cancer than if someone were to say, this cancer there is no cure or remedy for. You know what I mean? So even that can somewhat go to a perspective, but obviously with full information, we would say there is a baseline of human needs that we should hope that everyone can have, at which point then you can be free to enjoy your life as you see fit. I think that's maybe the ideal. And maybe that's what being developed means, is that every individual has a reasonable expectation to their basic human needs and is able to pursue happiness in their own, not, the pursuit of happiness sounds good, but pursuing just pure happiness is a little dangerous. But you guys get what I mean. Let me know if you agree with that. I think I was I cooking a little bit? This is off the top of my head. I don't know. We're just thinking out loud. Don't kill me. Like the Federal Reserve. That's a funny one. Independence makes them less susceptible to tribalism in political parties. Is that not manifested just in a different way in the U.S. at this point? I may have disagreed in 20 years ago, but at this point, people are getting killed, people are getting rifles, finding out where people that they disagree with are, climbing up on buildings and assassinating them, risking their whole life and freedom because they disagreed with their political view. Now, obviously, this is much different than, Kenya 2007 as such. But is that not a similar thing? And I'm not making them the same. I'm really proposing these questions. I am really not trying to say one way or the other, really. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't need to have traveled to the West to know that hospitals should have medicine. Okay.
I like this right here.
That government schools should be stocked and funded. That I should receive government services without needing to pay bribes. What's the difference between paying a fee for a government service and paying a bribe? I know that could sound silly, but honestly, when you start dealing with these systems in the U.S., it feels like, and then when you know about the politics and how things actually work, I really don't think those things are that much different. Because if, never mind, I don't know, get me in trouble. The U.S. legalizes corruption. We'll talk about it. We'll talk because there's a section where I want to talk about
regards in like health and things and school education, things like that.
Very good. All right, now let's dive into what is the real meat of this discussion. What do Nigerians have in common with white Americans, the WASP who founded this country? Except both of them being human beings. What do they have in common?
I mean, they're people that have innovation.
No. What do they have in common with Nigerians?
Physically?
Yes. Besides being human beings, the environment, culture, history, what do they have in common with Nigerians or Ghanaians? Or let's start using the word Africans. What do they have in common? Nothing.
Can't think of it.
So you see what you have done. So if there was no country on earth, but Africa is the only continent on earth, would you still call it a third world country?
No.
No. Then Nigeria will not be underdeveloped. Am I not right? So the day the mother deer or the mother antelope took its babies out, that was the first time they saw the tiger or the lion and saw its behavior. It can run a mile in 9 seconds, grab other animals and tear them into pieces. And the mother deer said, wow, that is a superior animal. What does that mean to the baby deer? Will you ever do that? No. So the baby deer is inferior for the rest of its life? That's what you've done with your countries. You're comparing your country, and the day you knew your country was not developed is because you look at another country where the people who live it, who build it, have nothing in common with you.
I think this is he's getting to the concept that I find incredibly interesting, is that, I'm going to let him continue and then we'll talk about it actually.
When I say that no black country would ever develop, I meant the basic things that is required, the 4-pillar foundation that you find in every developed country. But there is no developed country. There are only 2 types of countries on earth: industrialized countries and non-industrialized countries. So if I tell you, Ghanaian Africans, your people are
So now he's changing the topic from industrialized to non-industrialized and saying that development isn't even a thing, which industrialization is much easier to define.
Ghanaians are underdeveloped. Would you accept it?
No.
How about you?
No.
Then how can a place, there's no place. You can't have a country without people. So how?
So that's important. He's saying the individuals are not underdeveloped, right? Which, yeah, right? Like people are people. How's a person not developed?
Did you call the country itself underdeveloped, yet claim that the people who live in it are developed?
It's because of the infrastructure.
No, but what I'm saying is, if the people were developed, shouldn't they build what they're supposed to build?
Good
But
question.
it's the resources.
If the people are developed, then why is the country not? That's a good question.
As well, the lack of resources.
What resources do you lack? There are only 4 resources. I'll come to it and tell you, you have plenty of it than anybody else on earth.
True.
So you see,
Difference between government fees and bribes. Fees are clearly outlined by the government on official and public platforms. Bribes, on the other hand, are requested by individuals. Yeah, no. Get into real estate and then try to build something. If you ask me how much a permit costs for XYZ, it's made up. And then, how do you get an approval for something? Can be very subjective. Yes, yes, more rules are followed for sure. But if you think that things are that organized to the fact that like I want to do this. Okay, here's what it costs. No. Have you heard of lobbying? where people donate money to political campaigns. Do you think they do that for no reason? Or do they want to get the things that they want done for them? Or make it easier or cheaper? So they spend money in politics. What is that? What the heck is the difference between a political contribution and a bribe? One's legal. And they can't directly say what they want to say, although they can on back channels and such. The heck is the difference? If that was the case, no one would lobby the government. It wouldn't be a billion, multi-billion dollar industry. I'm in real estate too. Corruption is the order of the day. Are you in the U.S. or on the continent? Either way, trust me, I know how this stuff goes. Levy Trevor's culture is offering medical tourism in Kenya. She says most medication and surgeries can be done there at a fraction of the cost as long as you pay. What do you think of that? So we have to be, for local people, this stuff is very expensive in perspective. From my perspective, as me, with my amount of resources and my position, I have free medical services from the VA, and I would rather go to Kenya and deal with that system and pay out of pocket, especially because if things are deemed elective or you don't need them, they won't do them. I want to get a whole health screening. I want to get comprehensive blood tests. I'm going to do all that stuff when I come. Actually, I'm going to reach out to Kia about that. Also, so if I want to do that in the U.S., you got this weird drug system that the whole system is so structured that it actually doesn't work good, I think. Also, insurance corrupts the whole system and makes everything expensive. That's why an x-ray costs $10,000, because the insurance companies are gouged by the medical, the hospitals and such. But it's a whole game. Just think this, if you think, what is the cost of whatever surgery, like the raw cost of it, like the doctors pay, their training, their experience, the facility, all the equipment that they use, it's 10% of what you actually pay for whatever the insurance pays for whatever services. It's a whole scam. And from my perspective, if you have money, the healthcare system, okay, so if you're super mega rich in the US, then you can bypass all this as well. When you go to Kenya, it just takes less money to bypass this horrible system, in my opinion. And you can get access to things that you wouldn't be able to get access to in the US. For example, all these elective surgeries are like whatever people go out of country to get their hairline and that kind of stuff. But I'm not even just talking about that. I'm also talking about proactive medical care, because the U.S. really just wants to give you drugs generally based off of how our system works. And if you get a blood test, all the doctor says is all your stuff is in line. But do they take like a proactive approach to it? No, they just look at the mathematical equation. Oh, this is this is that. They don't look at your trend. They don't do anything. They don't. The level of care that you get is pretty crappy. And if you're paying the actual cost or the reasonable amount and have a better relationship with the doctors, I think it's much better. So I think the insurance cost is a big problem. Difference between government fee and bribes. Fees are clearly, oh, yeah. Oh, you're Kenyan. I have done a number of projects, some where we had to pay bribes to expedite approvals, and others where we played by the book, but things took longer. Same thing happens in the U.S., I promise you. Same exact thing, except for it won't be a bribe. It will be either some kind of fee, or you're going to have to talk to the right people and get them on your side. How do you do that? For example, I went to a cardiologist for a checkup. It ended up nothing wrong. 5 appointments, which could have been done at 1. Exactly. I don't have time for all this. I'd rather pay the money and they're going to be efficient. Because now I'm the direct customer. The insurance is the customer in our system. And so they're not even serving you. They're serving the insurance company. 5 appointments, which could have been done at 1. The doctor's office admitted it was so they could get more money. That it's a scam. It's literally, and I'm not even one of these people. It's literally a scam. We're paying, all the stuff that's done is just moving numbers around so that people can get more and more money. It's crazy. So if I get sick, me trying to get a prescription for whatever common medicine I need is a hassle. In Kenya, you could call or go to the doctor or do something and they could deliver that joint to your house and get you what you're supposed to get. No hassle. There's no proactive medical care. We have skin care. The majority of Americans are. What Ryan is saying is 100% correct. I work in the hospital. A bag of saline costs less than $5 to make, but we charge $100 a bag. And this is why the U.S. is falling apart, because yes, we have all these structures and systems, but there's so many on top of each other and they're all exploited. And this is what I mean, corruption. It's just legalized and looks better. How is a $5 thing $100 at its end use? Somebody's paying for that. Who's paying? And how did it get like that? And so when you say, oh, well, it's not but it's better than a bribe and this and that. Is it? I'd rather just pay the person. Some of us are old enough to remember that a doctor's office had 1 doctor, 1 nurse, and 1 receptionist. Now there are probably 8 support employees for every doctor, mostly to work the insurance company game. It's a scam. It's a big scam. And now these small private practices are getting bought by these big companies, so now you don't even have a relationship with your doctor. And I just generally prefer a direct relationship with the doctor, even if it's pay for the service that you get. Now, I want to be empathetic to Kenyans, and I understand, because if you don't have money and can't afford to even do a basic doctor visit, that's not good. That's bad. That's an issue. And that was what insurance is supposed to be able to help with. But I would caution, and this is what we were talking about last week, I would very much caution just emulating the system that we have in the U.S. because it looks better and you see the results in the U.S. It's overrated. Then let's just agree that this corruption lobbying thing is just part of business. I think this is how humans work, right? Like, people do things for their friends and people that they know. I think it's that simple. You don't want it to run rampant. You don't want tribalism taking so much control and power that, like, other tribes or other ethnicities or however you want to, whatever groups are excluded from the system. I agree with you. I press on this issue a lot because I really do think they're one and the same coin, and I don't think it's some special issue or problem, but maybe because of the scale that it is in Kenya, where there's even more money lost, but I don't know if that's really true. All right, continuing.
The comparison is when you began to know that your country, but the 4 pillar foundation required in any developed industrialized country, no black country has it. Those are, do you know what is WASP? W-A-S-P, white, the race, Anglo-Saxon, the ethnicity, Protestants.
White is not really a race, and Anglo-Saxon is a very specific ethnicity in Britain originally.
The religion and their history, right?
So is it when they came to colonize our continent and then
No.
left?
I'm saying That is a four-pillar foundation. Japanese, the language, the ethnicity, they're Japanese, the history, they're Meiji.
And then their religion.
Their religion. Germans, Lutherans. The English are Anglicans. They're WASP. They are formerly a Germanic tribe that occupy what we call now the UK or the English land, England. Okay? China, you see it, even though you have pockets of different tribes. They all speak Mandarin. They're all from the Ming Dynasty. They all share the same religion and the same history. Let me ask you, who is a Nigerian?
This is, I think, the most compelling thing that they talk about here.
I would say someone who's born there, or someone who's well, parents are from there or raised
So
there.
what is Nigerian culture?
It varies because in
Okay, so
Nigeria,
the answer is there's no such thing. What do Nigerians speak?
multiple languages.
There's no such thing. What is the value, sense of value of Nigeria as a culture? There's no such thing. What is the history of Nigeria? There is no such thing unless you start from 1960 when we gained independence. Yet the Igbos have been around that place more than 900 years. The Benin Kingdom have been around that place close to 1,000 years. The Yoruba Empire has been around close to 1,000 years. But when you say what is a Nigerian culture, Nigerian history, you can only start from 1960.
So are you saying is the people, is the people's fault that we're not developing even back then? Is it?
No, we haven't even come to the point of whether you are
Okay.
developing or not developing. I'm just simply saying the four-pillar foundation that is required for people to say this is ours and this is the dream. Since you were born, have you seen a blueprint by your ancestors that says this is where Ghana is going, and by the year 2040 Ghana will be this? Have you seen it?
Not exactly.
So that was what I was talking about on Wednesday or last week. I don't remember which live, but I think that this is very compelling. I want to know what Kenyans think about this specifically, right? Because and I would love to have this conversation, is basically the British came and drew lines all over and made different quote unquote countries. And I always ask, would Kikuyus and Kalenjins and Somalis and Luos and Luyas would they have structured the society the way that Kenya structured? And you have a outside entity that came and smashed all these people together and said, do things like this. When, like he had said earlier, they came, if they're the lion or whatever, they do lion stuff, right? But if you're not a lion, but then they're trying to make you do lion stuff, obviously you're not going to be good at it, right? Because how are you going to do what someone else created and made to their understanding that has no reference or context to your own understanding? Even like social media, I always tell people, your best thing that you can do is be yourself. Because if I try to be like some other creator, I'm just going to be a worse version of them. Why would you watch my channel if I'm just trying to be someone else that I'm clearly not going to be as good as being them as they are? So I try to lean into the things that I'm interested in. That's why we're even having this conversation. The real estate perspective. These things are unique to me because of my background, experience, context, etc. That hopefully for you guys, that you find compelling and useful. If I try to be Mr. Beast, why wouldn't you just go watch Mr. Beast? And so if you take the metaphor to different African countries, is how can you adopt a colonial governance structure on top of the fact that you don't have a unity of people or understanding or culture, really, how can you be effective in any way, shape, or form? You know, I think that's an incredible thing to think about. And again, I don't want to speak for Africans or Kenyans or anybody. I'm really just thinking about the questions, and I find them fascinating. And I don't know, I've never really heard this talked about a lot, right? So I'm very curious. I do think a Nigerian identity is forming. I do think a Kenyan identity is forming. But kind of the same reason that I'm attracted to the continent is because having 900 years of cultural understanding and context and traditions based off of the place that you're from, built for the environment that you're from, is important for people. Because you have something to fall back on. A lot of people didn't like Black Panther 2 as much. But something that I found incredibly resonated with me is the traditional African ancestor worship spirituality that goes through that movie. Because Shuri is a modernist that relies on technology. And she kind of rejects the traditional things that she's taught in Wakanda, which is a lot about ancestry, tradition, all these things that she thinks is dumb and backwards and not productive and is in this weird spiritual magical way, right? Just basically modern rejection of tradition. But when under duress and facing a challenge that she did not feel was something she could deal with, and the loss of her mom and her brother and all these people, she finally sought out the ancestors by taking the fruit and then going to the ancestral plane and getting strength and guidance from the ancestors, which is, I perceive as ancient knowledge has passed down from time to time, either call it religion or whatever, because it's helpful for people. And especially when you don't know what to do with your material life, or Christians would call it earthly things. You can't figure it out with science or technology. There's an ancient wisdom that you need to tap into. The reason why I'm talking about this is because that ancient wisdom or cultural tradition it was formed from the area and for the purpose of the conditions of the people of where they came from. And so knowing where you come from and having 900 years of passed down experience, I think is very important. I think it's something that we lack in the United States, and Black Americans specifically, because most white Americans can tie themselves to a cultural heritage and understanding and some guidelines or understandings that have been developed for hundreds or thousands of years that we are detached from. And as you go through life, you sometimes will face things that you don't have the answers to and need to fall back on something more meaningful than your own understanding. And it goes deeper than just trying to figure something out with your consciousness. I know I'm going deep and philosophical here, but I think it goes that deep with this conversation. And to take it back kind of more surface is that you have all these different cultural heritages mashed together by the colonizers, and then they leave you a system that is not your own, that you would not have created for yourself had they left you alone. And so to bring it full circle, how can you operate and navigate a system that isn't your own, and then try to have this shared identity among all these other different identities that have legacies of hundreds of years? That is fundamentally, I think, the issue for the continent that needs to be addressed and sorted out. And I have no idea what the answers are, because one thing I think is that, guys, again, give me some leeway on my understanding with Kenya, and Kenyans, please give your input. I do think there's a Kenyan identity forming. There is a combined culture to some degree, but I don't know. Let's continue. Is it enough? Is it real? So, for example, I see with the politics, if anything becomes tribal, everyone shuns it because of the experience of 2007. I think a lot of people lost a lot of lives and they saw that it really was bad. And so seems to be like a rejection of any negative tribalism. I think that's good. I think in general, Kenya has like a more laid back, chill type of culture that probably goes through most of the Kenyan culture. There's like a party, fun atmosphere to it, but is that real like culture or identity? Same thing with the food. Different people have different food. I don't know. Just stick it out loud.
But like they have their plans.
Who is they?
Well, I see it in the news.
Hold on.
government.
Go back
News
to
but
this
start from
question.
1960 when we gained independence. Yet the Igbos have been around that place more than 900 years. The Benin Kingdom have been around that place close to 1,000 years. The Yoruba Empire has been around close to 1,000 years. But when you say what is a Nigerian culture, Nigerian history, you can only start from 1960.
So are you saying like is the people's fault that we're not like developing even like back then? Like is it?
No, we haven't even come to the point of whether you are
Okay.
developing or not developing. I'm just simply saying the 4-pillar foundation that is required for people to say this is ours and this is the dream. Since you were born, have you seen a blueprint by your ancestors that says this is where Ghana is going, and by the year 2040 Ghana will be this? Have you seen it?
Not exactly, but like they have their plans.
Who is they?
Well, I see it in the news on the government.
News, but I'm saying what is Ghanaian blueprint? Have you seen the Constitution of America? It says clearly what they are going to be. How about Nigeria? No.
No.
Exactly. So you don't have a blueprint, like trying to build a house with no architectural plan. Two, you don't have.
Yeah, I wonder that, right? Like if you ask a whole bunch of people from whatever African country, like what is the vision? Like what are you trying to be or do? Is a really good question. Actually, I think that's the decline of the US because we can't agree on anything anymore. At all. Meanwhile, China, they're building all kinds, like a lot of other places are in alignment on how they want to do things. And how can you go anywhere if you don't know what you're trying to do? It's not possible, especially with a whole bunch of people.
The 4-pillar foundation required.
Thank you.
Let me ask.
Thanks, Kim.
The 63 black countries in the world, do you know any black country where the people who live in it founded it? By founding, I mean a group of people, like the Yoruba Kingdom, moving around and came upon a land that is fertile, has what they want, and they settled there. Even if they have to kill the indigenous and steal their women, they did, and they made it into a republic. Is there such a thing on earth? A place, a country, where the blacks who live in it were the ones who founded it. The Caribbean, the 13 black countries. Africa has 54 of them put together, the largest race on earth by number.
There is one.
Which black country do you know where the people who live in it founded it?
There is one.
I just know one that was.
Who founded Ghana? Which Ghanaian founded Ghana?
Kwame Nkrumah.
No. British founded Ghana and gave it to him when he was complaining too much he needs independence.
But that was.
Who founded Nigeria?
Ghana, though.
Which?
I actually do not know.
That's correct,
Like-
because no Nigerian founded Nigeria. The Benin Kingdom founded Benin Kingdom. Oduduwa founded the Yoruba. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. But I'm talking about
Somalia?
Nigeria.
No. Somalia is not the one, I don't think, because Somalia was carved. That's why you have Somaliland and Somalia, because the Italians and the British carved up Somalia. Was there a Somalia before? And yep. And I don't like what he says, but we'll see. Ethiopia there. Yep, that's the one that I was thinking of. Somalia could, I don't know, was there a kingdom of Somalia? That might, I don't know. I'm open to being wrong.
Okay, what about like Ethiopia, a country that was never colonized?
Sierra Leone was never colonized.
Sierra Leone?
Yes, they just pulled back slaves there.
That's not a good comparison because Sierra Leone and Liberia took the slaves from the North America, South America, and dumped them there, all mixed up, to make those countries. It's not a good comparison.
So what?
To
It doesn't
Ethiopia.
mean anything. Still, their country was carved.
Ethiopia was never colonized, but it was occupied by the Italians before World War II for like 10 years or something, but that's much different. And he bypasses this because this is why I'm interested in Ethiopia, because if you notice, they move differently. They built that dam. They're doing things without debt. They're very like more of a closed society, but they seem to have their own direction and self-determination to some degree. Although they do have, and this has to do with the Italians a little bit. The northern region, the Amhara and Tigray, have a conflict at points, though. The other thing we Africans forget is that these developed Western, other than the U.S. and Eastern countries that we admire, are largely mono, duo, tri-ethnic. Yes. Now, the funny thing about Europe, though, is that there were very many groups, but those groups eventually became assimilated. Like the French are a mix of Vikings from, and then they settled in Normandy, and Normans became French. Like there was a lot of different groups, but they did eventually become one group. But that's usually through like military conquest. For example, Britain had, it's famous for this, because they had the Vikings over there, the Danes, then you had the Anglo-Saxons, and then you have the Scots in the north, and you also have the Irish, you have Wales, and those were all different identities to some degree. Tribalism is tearing Ethiopia apart. Yeah, a little bit. That's their thing. How did Ethiopia become, or it's what was the other, Abyssinia? But see, they formed together on their own though. So why do they have tribal issues? I don't know. Ethnically diverse countries, it's easier to get a population on the agenda when you're reading the same cultural playbook. Yeah. Could African countries develop if there wasn't so much interference of the West? There have been many African leaders who have been assassinated or who wanted to develop. Yeah, big problem. Sankara, a whole bunch of other ones. I think that definitely doesn't help is the meddling from all these other countries. There were many successful sultanates in Somali Peninsula. They speak a native language, unlike many African countries who have. Yeah, true. Yeah, I guess Somalia can kind of count. There's not. See, what's up with Somalia? Because they're not. They're all Somali ethnically, but then there's different clans. I don't really understand very much about it. What's up with all that? I'll have to do some. You know what's funny? When you're seeking out information about these places, especially if you do pre-colonial African history, it's very hard to find information.
By the Europeans. So how do you expect that a people can build something they did not design? I'm trying to lead you slowly. Your conclusion, not mine, but all the people who are going to listen, because you guys are going to become members of parliament in the future. You are going to be the leaders of this continent. If you want to go back, you need to have something in your mind to say, this is what is wrong and I want to change it. Otherwise, we are all going to be swimming in the dark for the rest of our lives. No black.
And that's why I really respect what he's doing, because first of all, I feel him when he says that, because I feel like he means that. And I don't know. I think it's incredibly important to sort out some of these things, because a lot of times we just go, oh, it's corrupt. Oh, we need to develop. Oh, we need to build this. But like the foundation is the problem.
Country on earth will become industrialized. Impossible. You said resources. People keep complaining and telling you that the reason African countries can't develop is because the white people stole the resources. It's a lie. There are 4 resources nobody can steal. Water is one of them. Did you see tanks from Britain taking all your water away? No. Fela sang a song in 1981. Water house, food house. Hey, Kpalikpao, waiting to them, right? 1981, do you know how many years ago? He was complaining about there is water overground. The Niger River goes through Nigeria. No Nigerian can get a cup of water, pure one, from his pipe in his own room. You have tanks on every building. That's one. They didn't take it away. The second one is land. The colonials didn't take it away. You have vegetative land in Nigeria. If Japan own it, they will feed half of the world with food export. The third one, solar energy. 365 days, we don't get winter, we don't get spring, we don't get autumn. It's there. Have you harvested it? You go build an electric car. When you can't even give people electricity in their homes in Burkina Faso, what are you going to use to charge?
That's a good point.
You understand? So solar, that's the third one. So the fourth one is, of course, manpower resources, okay? From the intellect into physical. They didn't take it away. So all 4.
That's the biggest, the continent's population. That's why it's so exciting, and that's why I want to talk about these things, right? Because all the other populations are declining, and Africa is like going crazy with population. But it doesn't mean anything if you can't create a structure that's going to put people to work and get them to be productive, but also like allow them to live a good life, obviously. But I mean, just by sheer numbers, if the structure and systems can allow for all these people to be productive, you will see a revolution very quickly. I think it's such an opportunity, but it can really be missed because if you have a whole bunch of people and they can't do anything, then first of all, it's a human tragedy, because then you have a whole bunch of people in poverty and can't have no social mobility or any ability to really do anything. But there's another future where all these people can be motivated and being productive and build. I mean, you know how rapidly you could build with this population. It's crazy. You know, in Kenya, it's crazy when you go somewhere. I went to this wealth management firm. It's so surreal, actually. Like, it's so weird. It's all young people in these professional environments, like younger than me. Financial analysts, lawyers especially, a lot of them young. Doctors, nurses, very young. The future, like I don't. It's very coming from the U.S. where, like, if you go to these type of places, you will see a bunch of old people. Exactly, Kim. If you can't harness the manpower, it's going to be a human tragedy of poverty. And the stakes are very high because the people are coming, so they got to figure it out.
Things that help other countries to build themselves. You have it. You have it more than anybody. The Congo alone. The Congo has water reserve enough to feed the whole of Central Africa for the next 250 years and not even have a drop. The kids in Congo can't even take a clean shower because of lack of water. Turkana is the northern part of Kenya.
Isn't that crazy? You have all these resources, but you can't deploy them. That is a good point. And see, when I see these clips, it sounded like hate, but I mean, I don't think so. I think we have to look at what's happening.
It has. It took some foreign guys from Denmark to tap into the aquifer to know that Turkana has over 200 trillion, I don't know even the number, how they measure water, liters in Kenya. But the people of Turkana, every year, their cattle and humans will die. You can see it. And we will be sending them in Pesa. And foreigners will rush there to save. They can't tap the water to feed themselves.
So what do you think the internal issue is? Are you asking us to come to that
But
conclusion?
you are the one who said I'm crazy by saying you can't develop. Now we have seen clearly that nothing has been taken away. You have everything. So when we are now blaming the colonials for stealing resources, which is a boogeyman we use just to explain, as if we are the only ones who were colonized. If stealing of resources is the reason for colonization, Benin will not be colonized. We have nothing but coconut trees on the beach. Gambia wouldn't be colonized. Fiji Island wouldn't be colonized. Many places, Gambia wouldn't be colonized. It's not for stealing resources. It's too expensive and it's too cumbersome. Colonials, they don't steal resources, and they didn't. Everything you discovered now was discovered after colonization. But we use it as a boogeyman. And when we're not talking about resources, the countries that don't have resources, they say, oh, it's our leaders, they're corrupt. It's not true.
Yeah, because, I mean, really think about it, right? Like, what resource does Japan have? Although they did take a lot of stuff during, and before World War II. Like, what is that? How does a country with no resources do something? And then how does a country with a bunch of resources not do something? Got to really look at it.
Those leaders you have that you keep saying, where did you employ them from? China? They are from among you, right? Yeah. So every 4 years, randomly, you pick one of you, but you expect that person to know different from what you know?
Not different, but they should be willing to...
Willing? What do you mean willing? Willing happens if you know what you do.
I feel like they should, like picking like presidency, especially like in Nigeria, like they should see the things that us, like, you know, people struggle with in society. So we expect them to, like, okay, like, this is what we're struggling with. This is what... What?
It is your fault. How do you know that he has what it takes to fix it?
No, I'm not saying that he has what it takes. I'm saying that, like, people expect, like, I think, like, in Nigeria, because, like, people, like, are trying to vote for, like, presidency and things like that. And we all expect for the president to, like, see what is going on in the society and say, okay, like, we hope for you to, like, make this change. And, like, you know, they'll put, like, their stuff out there saying, oh, I will address this, I will address this. And then when they come into presidency, it's, like, the exact opposite of, like...
Yes, because you corrupted them.
Who corrupted them?
The masses. No African leader is corrupt.
That just makes... You're going to have to elaborate on that.
They are corrupted.
Now we're in the corruption conversation. The number one thing people on the continent like to talk about is corruption, and that's why nothing works right. Let's get into it.
So how
by
we
the people?
corrupt, like the people corrupted the like what? Like what do you mean by corrupted? Like who
So
corrupted
when
who?
computers started, right? When we had computers in high towers, you know that computer has a program in it. And so you have to only introduce what it can use the program to understand, right? So when people use malware to introduce your hard drive, what do you say happened to your hard drive? My hard drive is corrupted, which means you gave it something to do that is not part of what he knows how to do. Colonials left behind a political system, and you hang on to it, and then you're picking one of you to use it to do something. You said that's what you wanted. You said every 4 years you want to go out there and pick one of you to lead you. So somebody said, okay, pick me. Look at my suit, it's nice, and I speak your language. And you picked him. You've introduced a tax to this man or woman who you don't know if he knows he doesn't own a country. We just proving to you there is no country. But you're asking him to lead something that is not there. If you give your Lamborghini to your 7-year-old, you've corrupted his skills. He runs into people or he runs into a tree. The people you've been picking since independence don't know how to do what you're asking them to do. So you corrupt their skills.
So we've like, are you saying us Nigerians have?
Do you guys think that leaders, do you find that argument compelling that because there's no historical understanding of how to operate these systems that were not native to the people there, when you put them in power, they don't know what to do? Going back to all that stuff I was talking about the cultural grounding and understanding, and being given a system that you don't use, like Sufficient saying the problem in Somalia is a foreign political system, democracy, communism in the 70s. The sooner return to historical political system, the quicker prosperity, which is kind of my point. You got people operating systems that are not made for them. So, this goes back to my thing about the wigs. And some commenters didn't get it. You have British, you have Kenyan lawyers wearing white man wigs in court. Is that not emblematic of everything that we're talking about? Your hair doesn't even grow like that. You're literally importing someone else's symbols of knowledge to your own people that never could look like that. I know it's a simple aesthetic thing, but it's symbolic to the whole conversation that we're having. That you are trying to do something that maybe you just cannot do because it wasn't made for you. He made another example, and I'm just going to use it because I don't know where he says it at. Imagine you're all on an airplane and the pilot and co-pilot you get rid of, and they know how to fly the plane, and maybe they came from the company that built the plane in the first place. And you're like, you guys got to go. So you give them a parachute and they jump out. Now it's a bunch of people flying an airplane they didn't build and don't know how to fly. What do you think is going to happen to the airplane? That is an analogy that he used in one of these videos that I did find sounds bad, quite compelling as an argument. And it doesn't mean that the people are bad, because again, I think the direction, if you want to make it, less negative, is that maybe you guys know how to have a boat and manage the boat, but you're in a plane. That drone's going to crash because we don't know how to fly it. And that doesn't mean you're not smart or anything. You just don't know how to fly a plane.
Corrupted, like the presidents or something like that.
Yes.
That's happened.
You are just a corrupt in waiting. They make any of you MP right now, you'll be corrupt. Because what they're asking you to work on is not natural to you. It's foreign.
So I don't know if I totally buy that whole like, okay, part of it, yes. I've even talked to some people in Kenya about this, and that question comes up. If you became, in some kind of political power, would you like benefit yourself and people around you? And almost everyone's going to say yes, because that's how people operate. That goes back to my point with the US is like corruption just works differently. But is it possible to operate the system? I think so. I mean, to be overly corrupted seems like a choice. I don't accept the aspect of there's nothing else for them to do but to be corrupt. I don't agree with that. They might not be that effective, but to be corrupt is something else, I think.
Villages where you come from, do you use ballot to pick the chief? They
Right.
know you from age 12 by who you are, what you can do. And that's how we picked our leaders in Africa
This
for
is a good point.
hundreds of years.
Okay, so are you saying that if we implemented like a system like, so in Ghana, in my culture, the way like picking a chief works is there are 5 royal families and then it rotates each family every time. Are you saying that if that happened with like our government?
How can it happen with your government?
Well,
You
it's
don't
not
have Ghana.
possible.
You don't have a country called Ghana or Ghanaians. So whom are you picking?
See, I feel like he's on to something there with that, right? Is like, okay, would that's just like, this is why everything's so complicated, because the rebuttal is, well, Ghana doesn't exist as an entity exactly the same way. But if, and I'm just naming anybody, Kikuyus, right, had their own way of choosing their own leadership, would that be the remedy? It's not realistic, because how are you going to dismantle everything? And I don't even know if you should. Maybe there's a better solution. But I do wonder, what if you had your own system that you had chosen? Would it work better?
That just makes no sense.
So is the political system the issue? Like,
I don't know. I'm giving you
No,
things for
like-
you to make your own conclusion.
There's no Ghana.
There's no Ghana, there's no Nigeria. Who is a Nigerian? You're a Nigerian only when you leave the country and you are abroad. You said, I'm from Nigeria.
I think the only thing to do is keep working on a collective identity over time. I think it'll take a long time, right? But eventually, just like Europe did the same thing. I mean, you had, because like if you go to Roman times, the people of France, there was different tribes. There's Germanic tribes. There's the Huns. There's oh my goodness, who are the people that they fought with the very most? Oh my goodness, it's slipping my mind. And then they become the Franks, and you got Normans. You have all kinds of people. Spain was all kinds of mixed up. But eventually they have one Spanish identity, although Catalan was trying to break away. A Somali can go to Ghana and succeed quickly because of how they perceive business. Most Somali believe in self-employment. Also, they have the infrastructure of family to rely on other individuals from the community. It's really hard, and this goes back to why I don't think Black Americans can do the same thing, and we already talked about all that, is that we're all individuals. We don't have any kind of structure that bounds us to anything. Somalis kind of like Indians when they come to the U.S. or other countries, like they work with each other, but they're bound by family and like more than just that they're Indian or Somali, right? Like they're able to work together. Which is my point. Ghana isn't a thing. It's like Ashanti and all the different other tribes. I don't know all of them. They're Ghanaian by passport only, almost only. I mean, there is some joint culture. But like I was saying, I just think that I think the only realistic solution is to have a Kenyan identity, a Ghanaian identity, a Nigerian identity, because you're not going to unravel the tribes back to their own tribal sovereignty, I don't think. Banafrin is trying to do that. What's that? The Igbo area. I don't know. And then they still try to run a democratic system that's given from the West, which as an American I like, but I don't know if that's, appropriate for everybody.
Nigeria. But when you ask a Chinese, they don't say, I'm from China. They say, I'm Chinese. Japanese will say, I'm Japanese. Ask Africans, they always say, I'm from. It means you're talking about a physical location that was created by some foreigner, and a bunch of you who have nothing in common lives there.
Okay,
But in Nigeria, there's nobody says I'm Nigerian. You say I'm Igbo. I'm
We don't
Yoruba.
have the WASP unity that you referred to earlier.
Pardon me?
Just because we don't have the WASP, like,
Of course you don't have it.
yeah. So we're not we're just not Ghanaian. We're just like you're Akan, you're Gan.
That's correct. Do you know,
Akan.
and it's a metaphor. I love it. I read it. Do you know the Tower of Babel in the Bible? What was the main thing that stopped the tower from being built?
Yeah, I don't even remember.
Jesus.
I
You
don't
just said-
remember.
Do you know the Tower
I
of
don't
Babel?
remember.
Yes.
I know the story, but
Then tell the story.
I just know like a group of
I don't
people were building the Tower of Babel, and then they kept on going. As they're building it, I believe like they came across like I forgot. They came across like a fire or something like that, and like I think a fire like stopped on one of them, each of one of them, and they started speaking different languages.
So a group of people with one language, one culture, was building a tower successfully. For some sick reason, God looked down and changed their languages, and they started speaking different languages, and the tower stopped.
So that's
To go back to something I was talking about earlier, is that's why culture is so important. Or ancient wisdom, because you're using a biblical story to explain something that's happening today, right? That's why we need that.
that's what they did to us, or we did that to ourselves.
I don't know. I'm just describing things. You have to make the conclusions. What does a tower represent?
Development.
That's correct. Every time they say something is developed, you do this, right? So it's a metaphor. A tower represents development, growth. But it's only possible, I said it to you from the beginning, you got to have language. One. Do you know how America struggled to make sure Spanish is not even a second language here? Because they know what it can cause. You don't have that. You don't have a national culture. You don't have a national history. You don't have a national identity. So where is patriotism and nationalism?
But you're making it seem, well, I'm understanding it in the way that you're explaining it, that it's not exactly a bad thing, but like it's the division in the countries is what the problem is, why we can't develop. But that's what makes, I think that's what makes our African pride, like having so much diversity, but like in that one place, even though that doesn't make us develop to your, well, not to your standard, but like.
What have you benefited from that diversity?
I mean, I can say I come here and know who I am. And
But
where
that's
I'm from.
because you are a tree,
Yeah.
not because you're Ghanaian. See, when I said your name, I could say it from anywhere and I said you are a tree. I wouldn't say you are Ghana. And that tree forms you.
Okay, so what about the individual tribes in those little countries? Do you think it's possible for those countries to develop? Like those little tribes, like
No, but
the Chi
because
people-
you've made them to let go what is called in the development of a country self-determination. That is a goal, self-determination. You've let them go. They can't. They can't. You're now saying you are Ghanaian, yet there is nothing. You can't raise a child in Ghana as a Ghanaian. You can raise a child as a Twi kid with the values you have, your culture, your dance, your history.
I think over time these things can combine, but it will take 100 years.
Your traditions. You don't wake up in Ghana and say, I'm Ghanaian. You wake up as a Twi. When you look around, your inspiration, your determinations is forced by your culture. But now you don't have it. They don't teach it. You don't have it anymore. Ghanaian, you are not. Twi, you're not either. I'm not kidding. I want you to look at what I'm saying carefully.
I think
If there is no country on earth, black country, that was formed by the people who live in it. Every one of you are living in a guest house. You've seen people living in a guest house find the way to develop the main house better than the owner? Never.
That's a good analogy.
Why do we have the Oduduwa history? Because they were one people, one religion, one history, one ethnicity. You couldn't break in. That's why we have the tribal marks, to differentiate them so they can see each other and dream dreams. Why do we have the Benin Kingdom? Why do we have the Agbome Kingdom in Benin Republic? And the Ashanti Kingdom? Who fought the British? The Ashantis, because they were the most predominant in the area at the time. They were able to have an administration, form a palace with rulership, land division, everything. Where is it? They made you become, so it's not divide to conquer, it's unite to conquer. So what the colonial took away from you is not what you started fighting for after 1960.
Yeah, Kim. So, I always thought diversity was good because you bring all these different aspects together, right? But too much is division. But I think it goes even deeper than that, is because, like, even Italy, the northern Italians and southern Italians have a way different perspective about things. Not way different, but I know that they're differentiated. But too much differentiation breaks everything. So I agree.
What they took away from you is that identity for self-determination. But all the idiots who got independence, Kwame Nkrumah included, and all of them, the first thing they started working on is economic development, because they saw the people who colonized them. We want to be like them. And we've been lost since then. You say you went to Ghana and you see change. Change happens everywhere. Change is not
That's
a
just what I
goal.
was
So let me
understanding as
ask you,
development.
name one thing in you two, one thing in Nigeria or in Ghana that was originally built by a Ghanaian in the realm of infrastructure that you guys are coming to work on. What is it? You can't say about you. 130 million people. Every day you are knowing the rest of us saying we are the giant of Africa. Yeah, cool. You can't manage a gas station, but yes, what is it you know, and I'm not kidding, that a Nigerian originally invented, built it, and now people are trying to build on it? What is it? Original. Using the four
Music.
natural resources I just described. Look, I'm from Benin. I'm black as it comes. You know, Nancy and I used to go to Benin when I had my Heroes program. That's how proud I am from. But that doesn't mean I'm blind to what I'm talking about. Benin is only 3.5 million people with 49 different languages. They can't manage a public toilet.
They can't manage a public.
I don't want to laugh.
But I would say, like, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I do feel like, because, like, in some, like, people are aware, I feel like people are aware of, like, the resources that, like, we have already, that's in Nigeria already, that's, like, building on it. And then some people are, like, more focused on, like, back then trying to build up from, like, economic development, things like that.
From what?
But I just,
What original economic system do you have in Nigeria?
I'm talking about, like, the past. Like, people are, like, colonization back in the past, people are trying to like you said, people are trying to use that and like build that up. But I do feel like there are certain individuals or like people in Nigeria that are aware of like the resources that like are around us that we already have. Like for example, like people are like building like oil company or like water company and things like that. And I feel like not everybody is aware that we do have natural resources ourselves that
They
we
are
can build.
aware.
Yeah. I feel like not everybody knows. 'Cause I feel
What
like
do you mean you don't see the water?
no, I'm saying that people are like don't have that like knowledge or
So why
sen-
would they have knowledge about something they don't have capability to use? Why should I care myself about uranium when I don't know what to do with it?
But I feel like people are like they're not I'm gonna say this, but like people they're not like they see it. Of course, yeah, they see it, but I feel like they're not like able to say, okay, like let me learn what I can build from this.
And
or let
learn
me,
from where?
like probably from I'll say from history, like from our
How do
history.
you learn how to build infrastructure from history?
Like people can like
Building infrastructure is a capability. I'm talking about capability. Here, let me use the word so you can argue it. You sit around it, but you can't build it. Why? You don't have the capability.
Oh, that's a rough
don't.
one to say.
That's why you haven't done it in any black country, even though all the resources that everyone else have used. Listen, in 1945, thereabout, Japan was leveled with 2 atomic bombs. No other human country has ever suffered that completely. In 1945, Japan hasn't invented one thing. Yeah, they have airplanes they used to, but do you know what 1945? Your dad may be still alive, was born in the, yes. Do you see the country right now?
Yeah.
They are surrounded by salty ocean. They don't even have land. 73% of Japan, 126 million, is all taken by mountains. It's capability. Capability.
Are you saying that we're lacking that capability because we don't have that self-determination?
No, not at all. It's natural.
It's natural.
Oh, this is where we get
Like we're
risky.
naturally lacking that capability.
Yes.
so you don't think we can build or like have like eventually like have that capability to like say, okay, let me start knowing what to
Capabilities don't come eventually.
No,
they are either
like-
in you from the beginning or they're not.
so if, okay.
Can a fish climb? No. So if that is what is required of the fish, it doesn't have that capability.
There's evolution.
No, I don't care. I won't be around for evolution. I'm talking about now. If that is what is required of the fish, the fruits are on the tree, right? Golden fruit. If the fish can reach it, the fish will become very rich. Plug it and sell it. Can the fish plug it? So the golden fruits will be there, and the fish will be here and be hungry. So your resources are there, but you're hungry because you don't have the capability. And you're refusing to accept it because it's too emotional for you.
I agree with that.
I am talking about 63 countries.
Are we just viewing an Africa that is working their way through creating their own political systems? Problems will exist as they work through it. Are they creating their own systems, or are you just managing the one that was given to you? Would you pass laws that way? Would you have MPs? Would you have parliament? Would you have the whole system has been founded by someone else? Are we expecting too much from systems that have only been independent for about 50 years? Can you take someone else's system that was forced upon you and, what is the word that you use? You say independent. Can you take someone else's system that is not native to you and your region and people and cultural understanding and make it work for you? I think you can, but I think it puts you at a severe disadvantage. Because you have to learn things that the people that made the system already understand intuitively because it's cooked into their understanding and culture. It takes time to deconstruct it and fix it. But are they deconstructing? I don't think they're deconstructing, which is why when he was using the computer virus example, they're putting more programming on the system in the programming language that was already given to them, which I guess you could fix the computer that way. But it's going to take you a long time because you got to learn how the computer works in the first place and then remake it in the way that can work for you. Yes, there are 54. I'm asking questions. The problem is I don't think there's any choice but to do what you guys are kind of not exactly saying, but kind of asking about, is to take what you already have, because how are you going to go back? Yes, it took America a long time. America's system was built off of another system, yes. But the people, the founding fathers, had a vision for what they wanted to do with that system that was in alignment with the people there at the time. So they were trying to advance a system. They weren't, they were from the system at which they adapted the new system. They were British and then changed the British system to be Americans. It was still a relatable system. It wasn't like they tried to use the Chinese system. America took the British system. Yeah, but they were British people, which is not native to this region. Well, yeah, but the people that operate the system are British. They killed all the native people. The native people don't work well under this system, do they? Americans are British people. So I don't think that's really a good analogy. You have people from a different culture and region and everything trying to use a system, someone else's system. Americans are British. Originally. They were part of the British Empire, for sure, mostly. They were British. Yeah, mostly. Original. This is why we use Anglo-Saxon. But not everyone was British. Predominantly British. For example, our legal structure is British common law. Also, those regions are much more united. Well, that's not true. I don't know if that's true. No, Americans are not all British descendants. Well, obviously, but many are, and British culture has had a significant influence on America. Yeah, I mean, it is an advancement of the British system by mostly British people, I think, is how I would say it. Obviously, then you had the Irish and stuff like that come, although that's part of the UK now, so they're, it's not, I don't think it's really the same. What does a new system even look like? I think we are asking something of Africans that we didn't expect from anyone else. Well, this has never happened. It hasn't happened. Well, no. He would use an example like Japan. India was colonized. But once they got independence, they did not maintain the same systems and structures that the British gave them. That's the comparison. I will steal your phrase. This guy is now speaking from. He cannot say Africans lack the ability to develop or even innovate. The biggest, yeah, I think when he is saying the ability or capability, he's not saying. I don't think he means it in that way. but it sounds like in that way, in my opinion. I don't take it that way when I look into what he's saying. I don't think he's saying capability in the way that you're thinking about the word capability. British law has changed more than American has. Yeah, true. Columbus was Spain. Yeah. But just they were the explorers, but they weren't the settlers. America went to war in Afghanistan for 20 years for democracy. It didn't work. They eventually had to turn the country over. Yeah, it doesn't. They didn't accept it. They said, no, we're not doing that. Get out of here. Even if they weren't all British, they did pay taxes to the king. It's a mixture of Europe dominated by the English people. They paid taxes to the king until they revolted. Yeah, but what fundamentally, when we got into this discussion, is that their understanding of systems is in alignment with the British system. And so they're able to take that and run with it a little bit easier, I think. Look at India. India is still struggling to develop their system. They still have a caste system. No, but but that is the Indian system. And they kept it. And if you compare India to African countries, statistically, they're doing better, although I wouldn't want to go there. Yeah, the running water and sewage and all that. Yeah, for sure. But as India as example is that I think they rejected the British system. I don't think they use British common law and such. I agree that we're asking too much of Africa and these we do not. Well, I agree. I don't know what you can do. I just think it's important to what I found interesting about this topic is understanding the foundation and the trouble of the foundational nature of the systems that African countries and their existence in the first place is all troubled because nothing is native to the people there. They have their own parties. India has a parliament. Oh, they do. See, I don't know. But I don't know. See, I could be wrong.
On Earth, 14 makes ECOWAS. And just by accident, not even one?
So actually, if you're asking me what should happen or is possible, is realistic, or the vision, and I'm just me, but my thought is that over time, I think the European Union's an interesting thing, although there are foundational things that I'm not even talking about that I guess could be addressed, is that you create, the Kenyan identity, Nigerian identity, etc., and like the East African community, you working together, bringing the countries closer together on topics that they can agree on. Like I know Uganda wants access to the Indian Ocean, and the way they were going about it was a little wild, but working together, the borderless or visa reduction in visa fees and things to go to different countries, and then figuring out trade agreements and all that kind of stuff. I think all that kind of like a Pan-African point of view is probably my thing is the best. I just think it'll take a really long time because you have all these foundational problems that we just talked about, right? So language, the different tribes, the fact that these countries were not made organically and are not native to the people there. So you're going to have all these divisions and problems. You have a British government system generally, or a French one or whatever, that is going to be very challenging to figure out how you can make it work for yourselves. I think all these things are just a ton of problems. India has a parliamentary system and from the government. Yep. So I'm wrong on that. Thanks, guys. Huh. I think politics in Africa is too tied to religion. And the religion as a native, that, as an outsider, it's something I observe. I think politics. Oh yeah, okay. No, yeah, I'm wrong about the India thing, at least in the government system, because Parliament's a British thing. Huh.
You have to see it on Instagram? And you still think that I'm saying something stupid. But why do you think you should have that capability?
Oh, capability stuff.
Let me ask you. You've traveled quite wide. Have you seen any car made in Saudi Arabia? No. Have you seen any electronics made in Saudi Arabia? No. Okay. Have you seen any internet service or product made in Saudi Arabia?
I haven't seen that.
Okay. You call the Saudi Arabia a third world country? No. But they are full of infrastructure. It's working. How did they do it?
Okay, but so are you? I can't answer that question, but I'm posing another question.
Sure.
Are you saying that they have that capability?
They don't have it.
So, okay, the difference.
So what would the fish?
See, and this goes back to that capability argument. It's not that you as an individual are not capable. It's just like, it's not what you do. Because if you're using Saudi Arabia as an example, they can be successful, but they have to be successful in the way that they can be successful.
Do to get the fruits. The fish would employ the skills of the monkey and say, bring it down, you get 10%, I get 90%. The problem is you're trying to do it yourself. Because you look outside and you think others can do it, we can do it. It's not true. I lived in Kenya for 5 years, straight 5 years.
Oh.
I live on a compound of about 2.5 acres of land, trees everywhere. For 5 years, the leaves never fell. Winter never came. Spring never came. My wardrobe was the same wardrobe, okay? Cotton shirt. By 11 a.m., I'm on the compound. Africa is the only tropical continent on Earth. Have you seen any country that is industrialized and is tropical? No. Have you seen any country that have 4 seasons and looks like Sudan or Saleko? No. Okay. You see where I'm going? The only thing we didn't have and don't have is natural threat. Africa never suffered it. It's the most comfortable environment ever. You don't have to draw the water and store it because it never freezes.
That's another good point. I'll be thinking about this.
But if you are born in a place like here, every 3 months, your brain is worried. So not because you're smart, it's just you have typhoon, hurricanes, tsunamis, tectonic plate shakes, earthquakes, winter up to here, killing people, springs, hardcore fall. What do you have? Owambe. Nothing ever threatens. And when that happens, over millions of years, the brain doesn't even predict. No. Africa is predictable.
So we just stay comfortable.
That's correct.
You know what? That's so profound to me because I watched Vikings, which isn't super historical, on the History Channel. But I looked up some of the things because the Vikings went everywhere. And this is what to the capability argument, right? The Vikings, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, all that stuff. The land sucked. It's cold. Nothing grows. So they were like, F this. We're going over here. And they'd come and they'd fight and take the people's stuff. and they'd start living there and fight with them, but eventually they integrated. So I had no idea. Like half the dang people in Britain have Viking ancestry, the Denmark and all that. I'll just use the word Vikings for it's more understandable. So where you come from has a big impact. Not only, I had no idea about this. The Vikings are French because they were in Normandy. They went all the way down to Spain, Turkey, the Middle East. I had no idea. Russia's part, the Vikings, Rus, they made, because their area was so crappy that they had to be hard and they had to go take other people's stuff and go venture out. And he talks about another thing, and I think about this as being like a real estate person and actually looking at properties. He was talking about that there's not, I don't want to get all into it because I'm going to inarticulately explain it, but he was saying that the concept of maintenance doesn't really exist on the continent exactly. Because, so for example, our houses here in New Jersey need heating and cooling systems because it gets hot in the summer, cold in the winter. It hails, literally ice falls from the sky. There's snow. There's wind. So your house is constantly being damaged and having to be repaired and built to a certain way to withstand the environment. In Kenya, you don't really need air conditioning. You barely, really don't need heat. Like, you don't need a lot of maintenance. Plus, there's not extreme weather that's doing a lot of damage to your property. So these concepts, like he said, over millions of years, builds a cultural understanding of certain things. Which goes to my point is that these systems that were created in Europe, when you use them in other places, they could work, but like they're made to solve a problem of people that had different problems. And why not? What system solves your problems? And this is theoretical and kind of like vision, like, because it is what it is now, and I don't know how you're going to change it. So, but I think in future decisions, it's interesting to always keep that in the back of your mind about the systems, in my point of view. And that's kind of how I think about it. How does Pan-Africanism work on the African continent? Can't get 45 million African Americans to agree on it. So I think the idealism of Pan-Africanism is a problem. I don't look at it in this utopia type point of view. I really look at it as slowly trying to create unity and agreement, but you have to find the areas that you can agree on the small things first and then develop it over time. I don't think there's this big kumbaya. I don't think you give up your own identity to subscribe to this bigger identity, although that could be a goal, but I think it's small things. I see that as like the EAC, East African Community, and then making different agreements on different trade agreements that benefits everybody. And then, immigration agreements, and then, I don't know, land or joint projects or energy sharing and all this kind of stuff. And over time, you bring your countries together, is kind of how I think about it. I don't think it's like, oh, I'm African, I'm part of the country of Africa. I don't think it works like that. MC Treasurer, I agree with him on that point. Necessity is the mother of invention. Life in Africa was pretty much sustainable compared to other continents, so we had our basic needs and comforts. Yeah, and that develops your cultural systems and understanding of things. Yeah, I've thought of that argument too. Environmental pressure to develop. Like if you go to Jamaica, everybody's chilling because it's nice. Why are we fight? Why are we trying to fight? Why are we doing? It's like, the food grows out the ground. You don't need nothing. And that's not meant to be a derogatory thing. The problem is that my Viking example is people from another place come and be like, yo, this is nice. We're taking it. And if you're from the nice place, you're not really built for all that. It's like being a rich kid. If you're a rich kid, you know, when somebody, you know, it's hard to be a professional athlete that way because you're not hungry. The necessity is not there the same way. The flooding in Africa during the rainy season, well, certain areas, and severe droughts, one major issue, I think. But come on now. Certain areas, yes, but I don't think the scale is the same. Also, could you imagine if an African nation applied a similar system to the Chinese and were actually successful? How long would it last before it needed to be democratized by force? I mean, that is a big thing. The poll, actually, you know, this is probably the toughest thing, is that, like, I look at the Kenyan politics and I see how, and I think it's a really tough job, is that you have to navigate China and the US influence being pulled in both directions. And then you could add Russia in there as well, especially in West Africa. I think that's really hard. On top of all this other stuff. The flooding is predictable. Certain parts, it may be predictable, but that doesn't make any less devastating or dangerous. Well, you can account for it a little bit easier. Very true. Constant external interference. But to be fair, Africans also develop ways to beat our environmental threats, like medicines, to beat tropical diseases, different ways of living. Yeah, see, and maybe that's where you come, you know, with the medicines and the herbs and certain things like that finds its way into the culture, right? And probably more sustainability. Like Kenya, that's a really cool thing about Kenya is they take environmentalism pretty seriously. Although, what's up with Masai Mara and is it Marriott building them hotels? That's getting a lot of pressure right now. Good discussion, guys. I'm glad. I feel like some of these things, like if you clipped it individually, would sound bad, but I appreciate the maturity of the understanding of what we're saying. Also, I'm trying to be as articulate as possible. Oh, it's Marriott, yeah. Yeah, I don't like that.
So do you think that's an issue, like, with us, like, I'm not saying just for Nigeria, but like some African countries where like it's comfortable in our own like space, thinking.
Yes. People want what we got, but you're saying I'm not developed. The only time that you became this and people can point fingers is because, like you two said, the only time I knew my country was not developed is when I came to the Western world. But you're not a Western world. No wonder our people bleach, because they think if they become white enough, they can change their environment. And with that,
So they do another one. There's a part 2, but I'm not going to do it today. I'll save it for another time when I'm feeling like talking about that. But I really appreciate that conversation. I appreciate you guys for having it. I thought it was going to go a lot worse. I'm glad. I feel like if more people were in here, especially if there were more Kenyans in here, they'd be mad at me. But I'm glad we made it. And I definitely don't mean any offense. We're just exploring ideas and concepts that can help us think about things going further. And yeah, I'm glad we were able to have this conversation.